getting him back, whatever. Like that's everyone's got their own circumstances. Everything is subjective, but overall, that self-imposed guilt by living in a way that you have contradicting values, that's some way to live, and it's not mine.
Right. So professional wrestling is, in my view, like the most unique business there is. I mean, it is different. There's so many layers to it because there's so much psychology involved. You're seeking the approval of the audience. You're seeking the approval of your big boss who's right there behind the curtain watching you. And then on top of it, you have human beings essentially playing a character, which you guys basically call, or some people call a gimmick, right? Some people are playing themselves, just turned up a little bit, but you're essentially playing a character. And there's a lot of ego that's attached to that. And you get someone, and the first person that comes to mind to me is those classic Ric Flair promos, right? When he's just going off the wall. He's talking about his alligator shoes. I mean, it's just off the wall. There's no way that you would go to the mall and find someone talking like that, like, or just going off like that. It's this flamboyance to the 10th level, right?
Yeah.
How does a pro wrestler not take that home with them? That's almost like, I don't know, being an actor and playing a crazy character on camera or something, but this is different.
You do step into it and step out of it much like a actor would a character, but you not only don't bring that home, you don't bring it back to the dressing room.
You got to drop it at the curtain.
Right. And some people do have a problem with that, and it's not very popular with the other wrestlers, and that's another one of those levels things that you're talking about, because the people that give the best promos that really have you convinced, like, this guy really does believe that he's the best. I think he really does believe that. And then, that makes me want to smack him, and then and a lot of the boys, especially old school, now it's different. Everything's different, but old school rules, another level. You're trying to impress the guy you're in the ring with, especially if you're starting out. Like if you've been wrestling less than 5 years in the business and you're in there with a veteran that's over 10 years, there's a good chance that the veteran's going to eat you up, especially depending on where you're at. There's different styles in Japan or whatever, but certain wrestlers, you're going to be tested, and they're going to see how much you love it, how much punishment you're willing to take. And also, you're paying your dues, so to speak. That's part of it. So that's a whole nother level. While you're trying to do the right thing, you're also trying not to get injured. You're covering up so you don't get a broken nose or something, or to limit at least the amount of what you have to take as far as punishment and damage. But that's a whole other part of it. And now it's a lot more corporate, less old school. It was like a closed behind the door kind of society, whereas now it's a lot more open, and that's changing it because fans are able to find their way right into becoming a wrestler, and they didn't even go up the traditional route. So as much as they thought it was scripted, guess what? Now it is, because they're the ones doing it. And so the whole thing is changing, and that's causing the actual performers to believe in what they're doing less and less, and it comes out in the product. But the reason that we believed in it so much back then was because we were beating the crap out of each other, and that was part of it. When I got trained by the original Sheik in '89 and '90, you'd be surprised to learn this maybe, but there was never one time ever where I was taught that this is the way to do a move without hurting somebody, or this is the right way to land so that you don't hurt your back. None of that. None of, when you grab them in a headlock, don't squeeze them. There was none of that. We all had to, we had to convince the original Sheik, who was our trainer. We needed his approval. He's right there watching us. And if we weren't seriously, like, just, really squeezing each other, beating the crap out of each other, and trying to get a pin every time our opponent's shoulders were on the mat, and if we weren't doing that, we did not get his approval.
Wow. There's approval again.
Yeah. It's all relative, all of
Yeah.
it. That's what
Yeah.
makes it true.
Yeah. So what happens if a performer gets caught up in their character, can't drop it, comes back through that curtain and operates through the locker room, maybe too boisterous or just
It's,
caught up? Will they be checked?
yeah, they're going to be checked, and a lot of times it's the kangaroo court that checks them. And by the way, there literally is or was a wrestler's court in WWE. When somebody got out of hand, they would be called into a room with a bunch of wrestlers that I never got into any of that stuff. One time I opened the door to see why everyone was in there. When I saw what was going on, I rolled my eyes and said, oh, screw this. Because I'm
No
not about
parts.
that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. They hear the case, they post the punishment.
Who was the
And,
judge?
usually it was Taker. Yeah, I think sometimes Booker T. Sometimes you had to work with whoever's there, but it was someone in that position that would that would preside over the matter, and yeah, lots of times. And otherwise, if it didn't go to court, then you might you probably want it to go to court over the boys taking care of you in the dressing room. And I don't one in the ring. Yes, definitely in the ring. They could eat you up, especially someone that really knows. Like we got a lot of badasses that are collegiate fighters or MMA competitors, or there's a lot of guys in the business that don't really know that much about fighting, that are just more into the entertainment part, and they're not going to fight back, because if they do, it'll make it worse when they're getting eaten up. That's part of it. But you've probably also heard of one of the ways that I'm not too proud of it being a fact, but some of the guys would find their outfits. They go to wrestle and they open up their bag and their outfit has been cut up into shreds,
Mm.
or worse yet, somebody has defecated in their bag.
Mm.
Things like that.
Bullying, basically.
Yeah. But
Hazing or whatever.
it's usually brought about by somebody that doesn't understand how the locker room rules work. It's usually somebody that's violated the terms of the boys.
It's
And
like a secret society, man. It's like
100%. 100%. We had our own words, our own language, and used to be like, if anybody came back in the dressing room and didn't belong there, they'd get beat up and thrown out. It was still that way. Like when I was in ECW, my partner Sabu used to always beat up the hot dog guy. He would try to cut through the dressing room, and I think it was in Boston. He would grab him, get out of here, grab him and throw all his food. And the poor guy, he's just a kid doing his job. Someone probably told him, to go from the kitchen to the counter. It's easier to cut through here, but he was brought up old school, and he was trying to keep it old school. Now it's crazy. They even did a movie. It was on Jake the Snake, Beyond the Mat. I don't know if you've heard of this documentary.
yeah.
When that guy was creating that was too early. The business wasn't open doors at all yet, and we sabotaged that guy's projects. Like, there was so many. When he would leave, the boys would go through like some of his videotapes and stuff, and they'd throw them like in holes in the walls, between the 2x4s and stuff. They're probably still there.
Wow.
Like unseen footage. And he'd want to interview us in the dresser. He'd want to record us talking about business, which we were not willing to do. So that thing was ahead of its time.
That was about
And
10 years ahead of its time. Yeah.
yeah.
I can see that. Yeah. I remember that documentary very well. It was fascinating.
Yeah. When I saw
Now
it,
it's normal, right? Everyone's doing shoot interviews.
yeah, but maybe one could look at it and say maybe that helped bring down some of the walls, which could be said in a defensive way from a wrestler. It's wide open to the point to where people imagine that it's something that it's not. And that's like the hidden magic that hasn't left the business yet. Like, people think that we get scripts, we all love each other, and that we're almost like playing. They think it looks fun. And that's what's still cool about it, is that they're all fooled. A lot of us can't stand each other.
Yeah.
And when you're in the ring, a lot of times you're really competing against each other to outshine, to outperform, to outlook. Yeah. I said, stay down. There's a lot of that, and it's like, So there is still some of what it's like a new kayfabe, which is what we used to call the behind the doors part of
Yeah.
the business. Yeah.
It's like it's scripted, but it's more the outcome that's scripted. You guys have to fill in the blanks because you're the artist.
I used to wrestle Undertaker a lot in WWE and not even see him the day of the show until we get in the ring. I didn't have to know anything. We both knew how what was going to happen in the end, but it's whatever you want it to be. Like I said, there's probably places now where they get handed like a whole script or something. I've never gotten one except for suggested dialogue, like when we do the backstage vignettes and they'd have words for us. They would give me a script, but it was something they didn't mind if I could change it and make it more my own. But it was a lot of times I was so offended that they even thought I was close to, because it made me sound to me anyway like I was so dumb. I'd be like, some of the words were like, "Oh yeah." No, I read it like that. And I'd say, "You really think I'm going to say that when I'm talking to somebody?" But besides that, I've never had like a script handed to me that tells me like the moves and whatever. But anyway, I think there's black and white and all kinds of gray in between. There's still a lot of different styles. There's different levels of shoot or work style and rough style. And, they have these death matches, which if that fits into anywhere, in the spectrum, then we got a wide spectrum.
You mentioned the Undertaker. Did you need his approval?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I would have been like the complete, drizzle and shits during the match, then probably I wouldn't have wrestled him again. And yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, that could go really bad for you if you had a total disapproval from the Undertaker. You're probably not even going to stick around. Yeah, he's like the top guy as far as the office stepping into the dressing room.
Yeah, there's so many stories about the Undertaker floating around. He's like the
Yeah.
captain or
Yeah, but he seemed cool. He seemed cool, but he was very influential on what was going on, no doubt about that. So you would want his Triple H when he was in the dressing room, everyone would kind of like stiffen up, and be a little more on their best behavior because his position, and then sometimes like when we would be at the non-televised shows, sometimes there wouldn't be some of these guys around, and it was a complete different atmosphere, kind of like you have a substitute teacher when you're in high school or something.
your character was unique because again, in wrestling, they're typically very boisterous, very outgoing, and you're calm, cool, confident. Your cockiness would just come from pointing, pointing while you're saying your name. Was that really Rob Van Dam, the real person?
Absolutely. Turned up a little bit, you know, but now it's more of a change from being in the ring than being here on the couch, because I realize that really I'm probably an introvert. I hardly ever leave the home. When I do, I'm not the one that's seeking the center of attention. You know, I like to drive a very normal looking car that doesn't stand out. Same with my dress and everything. I get enough attention, and I get recognized everywhere. And I feel like on my time off, I don't crave that. I don't. I also, to balance out, take a break from it. It's weird sometimes when you think you're on your time off, just being yourself, and you're driving on the highway, and then you turn and you see everyone's freaking out in the car next to you, and they have a video camera on you. And that's happened several times. And it's like it's cool that I stand for something in their life that's so excitable. At the same time, I'm very grateful, but not as excited on my time off. I'm not the cockiness, the boisterous ego of the character that I have to put out there. I did used to feel that more when I was in ECW. It was easy to really feel like I was the best wrestler in the dressing room, and and maybe I would get voted at that time that I was the best they had. I've certainly heard it a lot, but now I accept real truths more, such as everything is subjective. So if someone else said Lumini was the best wrestler, then guess what? They're right. So, but at the time, being so competitive, I did have to be that wrapped into it, with my own real feelings to even be able to project that. So even on my time off, I wasn't the same balanced person that I am now, if that makes sense.
Well, it's pretty cool that you made it to the top. You made it into the Hall of Fame without having to scream and yell.
I resisted that my whole career. They always wanted me to yell, scream,
Yeah,
wanted me to yank my ponytail out and shake my hair. They thought that
right.
that was going to be, so many things were suggested. Yeah, it
And
was, and I was like, hey, don't you got enough of those dudes?
well, I think now we're seeing it with Roman Reigns.
I thought you
He's
were going to say Matt Riddle because he basically does everything that they suggested for me and
right,
stuff that I came up with as well.
right. Yep, that is true. But Roman's new character is very reserved and very relaxed. And it's rare. It stands out.
He does have a chill vibe too. Whenever I've been around Roman, he seems very calm and relaxed. And that's cool that they can let him be himself more. And if I was in control, which we can never control what people think about us, but if I had something to say about what kids would take from watching me, I'd much rather have them pick up on that kind of stuff, on accepting things and being more stoic instead of getting angry, flying off the handle. That leads to trouble and a dramatic life. Very not zenful.